Hey everybody, and welcome back to Windies 2012, the show where I recount some of the best and worst that 2012 had to offer in the world of indie gaming. We're actually going to do something a little bit different for this episode because I've invited a bunch of other YouTubers who also cover independent gaming to come on and give their pick for the best indie game of the year. That way we get some more perspectives on how the year went down besides merely my own. Plus, hopefully this will introduce some of you guys to other respectable YouTubers who produce content that may be up your alley. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hey everybody, Jay Smith OTI here, bringing you my favorite indie game of this year. And after narrowing down a lot of games, I'm left with a relatively short game, but in my opinion, it has the most heart. And that game, and my choice for indie game of this year, is Mike Bithel's Thomas Was Alone. Thomas Was Alone is a 2D puzzle platformer that just stands out from a heaping pile of mediocrity that I consider the genre of puzzle platformer. It's a game that it's not so focused on getting point A to point B with a simple gimmick thrown into the mix, and that I feel that a lot of developers kind of take that stance. The way Thomas is able to set itself apart from this crowd, and isn't the gameplay mechanics, and it isn't a revolutionary new gimmick or anything, it's the story, and it's a story that you can immediately be drawn into. From the very beginning to the final credits, you're moved through the story through the narration, and the narrator, and I give so much props to Danny Wallace, who did a superb job on the entire voiceover for the entire game. He really is able to bring the characters to life, and whether it's Thomas's sense of wonder and sense of adventure, or it's his longing to be part of a group and loved, or maybe it's Chris's bitter self and he's upset that he's not able to move as fast or jump as high as some of the other characters, or maybe it's John's egomaniacism. All of these characters have something in them that someone can relate to and that the player is able to relate to. And as you go through the challenges in every level, I'm not looking at this game as I'm a rectangle moving through a simple puzzle or a maze, if you will. I'm a team, and I'm a group of diverse characters working together to accomplish the common goal. The funny thing is that since I'm able to reflect myself in every one of these characters, it just seems that there's little bits of me that have to work together to get to the end, and I just find that just amazing. Thomas Was Alone is a game it's really able to strike emotion into the players. It has highs, it has lows, and being able to make me reflect on myself as the characters that I play as is just really something special. With excellent presentation, crisp graphics, and a story that will make you smile the entire way through, Thomas Was Alone is my 2012 Indie Game of the Year.
Hello there everyone, I'm Michael A.L. Fox, aka Foxman here, and my favorite indie game of 2012 is Kerbal Space Program. Kerbal Space Program, abbreviated KSP, is one of the few indie games of the year to leave me awestruck with its ambition. While Kickstarter has become riddled with space simulators, Squad takes a more backseat approach with a paid alpha release of Kerbal Space Program on its own website. Despite its early stages of development, Kerbal Space Program has proven to become a very competent game thus far, with growing support after every single update. The reason? Simple. It's a game that dares to tread on the grounds of realism. We're not talking truck driver simulator here, we're delving deep into the complexities of rocket science and everything that comes with it. The goal is to build a space-worthy vessel from scratch with only a few components that have more comical descriptions than informative. Once you're satisfied that you've applied enough duct tape, you take things to the launch pad, quickly learning of the success or failure of your craft. Assuming you've succeeded in pulling away from Kerbin's gravity, not that dissimilar from Earth's, you'll be tasked with understanding how to achieve proper orbit and land safely on celestial bodies of your choosing. Whether you choose a barren moon or a gas giant, each body will provide its own unique challenges. Of course, if you really want to strut your stuff, try your hand at a return trip back to the lush Kerbin world. The success of Kerbal Space Program thus far has been its no-holds-bar approach at real science and mathematics. Indeed, it's pervaded the concepts of space travel so well that employees of NASA and other space agencies use their real-world knowledge to pick up and play the game with ease. Naturally, I forgot to turn off the oven before I left Kerbin, and landing gear was the last thing on my mind. Despite the scientific framework of the game, it provides a very humorous element in the little green Kerbals that struggle to maintain sanity as you push the limits of their bodies on the various excursions into space. All said, Kerbal Space Program is a wonderfully fresh game for those dreaming of their own space odyssey. More so, it isn't even close to being finished and promises to implement even more features. Get in on the action now and show support for my favorite indie game of 2012. Major Tom out.
What's up guys, Zack Scott here, and my pick for Indie Game of the Year for 2012 is Journey, developed by That Game Company for the PlayStation 3. Journey was first released to PlayStation Plus members on the PlayStation Network, and I downloaded it to play it for my Zack Scott Games channel, and I was blown away. At first when you play, you're this cute robed creature in the middle of a desert, and then you begin your journey, so to speak. The gameplay isn't very clear at first, but that's alright because you eventually pick it up naturally without the need for any forced tutorials. All that lies ahead is mystery wrapped in beautiful immersive surroundings, and that helps cement this game as a game about discovery. One thing you'll eventually discover is, you may not be alone. If you're connected to the internet, you'll come across someone else who looks just like you, but there's no name attached, and no way to communicate with him other than emitting little musical notes. So, if you choose, you can begin your journey together. You explore new levels, you can collect little symbols, you can find secret areas, but the main point, as the title alludes to, is the journey. What sells it though, is the feelings you'll experience while on that journey. There's the feeling you get when you're exploring an enchanting new area with someone you don't even know. There's the feeling of loneliness you get when you get lost or separated from that same stranger. There are the feelings of uncertainty and hope when this game makes you contemplate life and death. There's the feeling of wonder as you stare into the depths of these huge, amazing levels while the beautiful soundtrack just sweeps you away. There's been a lot of talk about good music in games. Well, Journey's soundtrack is the first video game score to ever be nominated for a Grammy. Anyway, the point of a game should be to entertain while causing players to have some sort of positive experience. With Journey, it's quality over quantity. Journey entertained me more with less than most games provide, and it made me feel more than most forms of media are ever able to. It was thought-provoking, it was immersive, and it's my choice for 2012 Indie Game of the Year.
Hey guys, this is Nick from Indie Impressions, and my favorite indie game of 2012 is the ambient musical exploration game Proteus. Despite the game still technically being in beta, developers Ed Key and David Kanaga absolutely astounded me with their living, breathing, pixelated representation of our world. Starting up the game each time will generate a new landscape, and with it a new journey that the player can take at their own pace. Players roam the landscape freely, taking in the sights they choose to see, and watching each day go by with a sunset. Gameplay itself could be compared to something resembling that of well-known and popular indie game Dear Esther, however minus any directly guiding narrative. Instead, the developers have chosen to use sensory cues to let the player know the path they need to follow to progress. Excellent art and sound design are two of Proteus' greatest strengths. Aside from the stunning color palettes and abstract but recognizable structures around the landscape, the game features a dynamic and hypnotizing soundtrack that ebbs and flows with each interaction the player chooses to engage in. You'll discover frogs, dragonflies, owls, crabs, and more, as well as various ambient environmental set pieces, while you let yourself become captivated by the world presented to you. The heart of Proteus, and what makes it special for me, comes from looking a little deeper beyond the aesthetic and charm that first presents itself. The subject matter contained here is so basic and fundamental that it can be easy to miss. The journey each player goes on throughout Proteus is an individual journey through all 4 seasons, and equally, a journey through life. The developers have used a digital representation of the world we know as a gallery space, strategically evoking nature and the passage of time, which for me created an attachment to a feeling I wasn't expecting I would eventually be led to miss. The journey also yields an interesting and possibly unexpected ending, which, in its grace and simplicity, admittedly left me a little teary, though in a good way, of course. Proteus is currently available for pre-order and is shooting for an official release very soon. Pre-orders get instant access to the DRM free beta version, all future updates, and a Linux version when it's ready. If you're feeling introspective or just find yourself intrigued by the art style, give it a try. You might be surprised how much you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Green9090. So when Ryan asked me to choose the best indie game of 2012, I was like, oh fuck, because this has been a great year for really innovative indie games, and it's so hard for me to choose just one. I've enjoyed so many games for such different reasons that depending on how I define best, I can come up with like 5 different games. I decided that I would define the best game as the one that did the best job of refining a genre and doing something better than any other game of its type ever has, and that game is definitely Mark of the Ninja by Clay Entertainment. For me, stealth games have always represented something that sounds really good in my head, but all too often, clunky controls and slow gameplay will drag the experience down, and leave me kind of disappointed. Mark of the Ninja does not have that problem. This game is a triumph in every aspect. The art is a great balance between fluidity and function. It looks great, but it also provides a really clear and intuitive display of the information you need. The sound design is really good, the level design is interesting, the controls are tight, and most importantly, the game just feels good to play. The game is also hugely replayable for a number of reasons. The variety of abilities and items and special conditions you can apply to yourself mean that even if you play through the same level over and over, you won't end up doing the same thing twice. And the fact that every level has a bunch of hidden objects and these quirky achievement style objectives to accomplish means that you actually have a reason to go back and play them a number of different ways as well. The game also has one of the most innovative New Game Plus modes I've ever seen. I won't spoil it, but needless to say, it warrants a second playthrough. All in all, this game hits all the right buttons for me. It's inarguably the best stealth game I've ever played. It wasn't an easy decision, but Mark of the Ninja is my choice for Game of the Year.
Hey guys, my name is Alex, and I am here today to talk to you briefly about my favorite indie game of 2012. Now, even though there were a lot of great indie games this year, there is one in particular that stands head and shoulders above the rest to me. And that is Telltale Games' The Walking Dead, the 5-part episodic point-and-click adventure game based on the zombie apocalypse. And what makes this game so special to me is the emotional attachment that the game forms with you, the player, as you go throughout this game and witness the story. What makes it great is the story is just something you're watching unfold. It makes it your story. It becomes the way that you choose to play the game because there's many choices that the game throws out at you. You choose whether someone lives or dies. You choose a lot of the outcomes of this game. And ultimately, the story is going to become yours. You're going to be Lee Everett, the main character. Clementine, the young girl that Lee Everett's taking care of, becomes someone that you are taking care of. And it becomes emotionally important for you to see this through to the end. And it attached to me in a way that I never thought possible. In fact, it almost made me cry a couple times. It's that good. What makes the experience ultimately so compelling is the dark, gritty, realistic world that The Walking Dead paints the storyline in. And that means that you're going to have characters that you love suddenly get ripped away from you. And you're going to have segments within the game world that just seem like it's asking you to do something you don't want to do. Neither option seems like the ideal option, and that's the point. You're going to have to make the best of a bad situation, and that's what The Walking Dead is really all about. It's coping in an environment that you're not able to cope with. It's trying to show you through the character development that these people are suffering, and no matter what you do, something is going to go wrong, but you have to do everything that you can despite that. I really strongly recommend this game. It's my game of the year, no matter what category, indie or otherwise, and I highly recommend it. Telltale Games' The Walking Dead is my game of the year.
Well, that's going to do it for the fourth and penultimate day of Windies 2012. Be sure to check out the channels of today's contributors if you're interested in following some guys who make good coverage of the indie gaming scene. And as always, I hope you'll come back tomorrow to see my personal pick for the best indie game of 2012. Thanks for watching.